On today's Join Us in France, how to protect yourself from pickpockets in Paris. This is Join Us in France, episode 154. Bonjour, I'm Annie, and today I bring you a conversation with Elyse on how to protect yourself from pickpockets in Paris. We give specific steps anybody can take that will make it less likely that you will be the victim of a pickpocket, but also steps to mitigate the repercussions if you do get robbed. Let's not fool ourselves. Pickpockets and magicians use the same misdirection techniques that work on all of us. A lot of these pickpockets are very, very good at what they do. So if it's happened to you, don't feel bad. Just do everything that you can so it doesn't happen again. The only way to make sure nothing bad ever happens is to stay home and do nothing, but we're not going to do that, are we? So listen to this episode and get some inspiration on how to protect yourself from pickpockets in Paris, anywhere in France, and actually anywhere in Europe, and go on to your next trip with full confidence. Our next Paris tour is scheduled for October 1st through October 7th, 2017. We would love to have you join us in France, not only through the podcast, but also in real life. The inaugural tour was a great success, so we want to do it again. And if you put down your deposit during the month of June, you get €100 off the total price of the October tour. Check out Addicted to France for details. For show notes on this episode, go to joinusinfrance.com 154. That's the number 154. Stick around at the end of my conversation with Elyse to hear Dave Walsh share some thoughts about the inaugural tour. I keep sharing feedback about the tour because I'm very proud of the type of tours Elyse and I are offering. We go beyond what other companies do, and we do it at a great price. So for me, it's worth talking about, and I hope you're not sick of hearing about it yet. And now, on with our instructions on how to protect yourself from pickpockets in Paris. And towards the end of the episode, I also give the details of what happened to me and my wonderful, expensive camera. I thought it was theft at first, but it wasn't. This is Join Us in France, episode 154. Hello, bonjour, I'm Annie.
And I'm Elyse.
And today we are talking about safety in general. For travelers.
Yes.
Now, obviously, we're going to talk about France, but this applies a lot of other places.
Right.
A lot of other places.
Yes.
And safety in terms of what you can do, things that you can do something about. Obviously, if you get run over by a truck, there's, you can't prepare for that. But there's
Hopefully
it won't happen. Well,
hopefully it won't happen.
What I mean is, we're not trying to tell you, we're not going to give you tips on how to prepare for things that are not predictable at all. But there are some safety things that we know happen.
Yeah.
Like getting pickpocketed.
Pickpocketed.
Like
Losing things.
Forgetting things.
Right.
And the truth is, the reason why I wanted to do this now, Elyse, is because Rick Steves was just pickpocketed in Paris just a few days ago.
And so we know that it can happen to anybody.
Anybody at all. And I'm sure he didn't do anything wrong.
No.
And if it happened to you, don't feel badly. It can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
But there are some things you can do to mitigate the effects of something like this happening. So, in the case of men especially, men have a tendency to have a wallet in which they keep a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I would say if you want to take your wallet, that's fine, but remove as much from it as you can.
Yeah, I think there are two things. One, you should certainly, and I think that's true even if you have a wallet in a bag as a woman.
That's true.
I think you should carry a minimum amount of certain kinds of things with you. However, the big no is do not put it in a back pocket.
Or even a front pocket.
Don't put it in anything that doesn't close with buttons that
or a
you
zipper.
Cannot cover with your hand or your arm.
Exactly. If it's not zipped, don't put it there.
Right. You know, in the summertime now, especially here in Europe, a lot of guys wear these kind of long Bermuda shorts, short
cargo
pants,
cargo
pants.
Yeah.
And they often have two big pockets in the front that button close.
Yes.
And they're in the front, which means you have your arm kind of there. So,
yeah.
I mean, for women, it's different because we all carry bags and we have to talk about the kinds of bags. But that, at least for a man, is what they should think about.
Right.
You know?
If it's zipped or if it has a
good
button,
closure,
then okay. But, you know, having seen how fast it can happen, the people who do this are very good.
Yes.
And they are good at distracting you, and it can happen very, very quickly.
Yes.
So I would say remove anything that's not essential from your wallet or your purse.
Right.
So take one credit card with you.
Yes.
One.
Keep one in your hotel room or wherever it is you're staying.
If you have 10 credit cards,
take one at a time.
Right. One at a time goes out with you, and a little bit of cash goes out with you.
Right.
That's fine. But do not take, for instance, your US driver's license or your Canadian driver's license will do you zero good in France.
Right.
Don't have it on you. You don't need to take. You don't need
your
to have
passport. You don't need it.
Exactly. Your passport is really a big hassle to replace if it gets stolen. What I do is I take photocopies of my ID that I have on me. If I get stopped, and it's happened to me driving, I don't typically take my driver's license or anything. I just show them the photocopies. I tell them, look, it's so hard to replace all these things.
Right.
I just go around with my photocopies. I will produce the original at the gendarmerie within 24 hours.
Right.
It's not a problem. I'm not trying to pull a fast one on you. It's just that I'm afraid of losing the stuff or getting robbed. So before you come to France, there are some things you should photocopy. Your passport is one, and you should do 2 copies.
You should have one on you all the time.
Right.
And the other one somewhere in your suitcase where your passport is not.
Right.
Just in case. The same is true, I think, for credit cards.
Right. Credit cards, you need to copy back and front. Or take a picture of it on your phone or something. But having a paper is probably better.
In case you ever lose your phone.
Exactly. If your phone gets stolen, bloop, there you are. You don't have your photos anymore. So have a photocopy, because if you get pickpocketed, that way it's easy for you. You just grab your photocopy. It says right on the credit card what number you need to call to cancel that card. And it just takes a phone call. I mean, it's not a problem.
And having had this happen to one of my clients a number of years ago, do not, under any circumstances, bring American checks to France or any European country.
Right.
Not one check, because any check can lead a hacker into your account, and you will have to close absolutely everything. So no American checks are usable in
they wouldn't do you any
Europe
good.
Anyway.
It wouldn't do you any good.
Do not take them with you.
Yes.
Leave them at home.
Yes. So far we've got things you need to leave at home, or at least in the hotel safe.
In the hotel safe.
Is any checks that you have, your driver's license from your state or your country of origin. You're not going to be driving anyway. You don't need your work pass, your work ID. They give you a pass with a magnetic thing.
Right.
You don't need it in France.
You shouldn't have to bring it with you to Europe.
Don't bring it at all. Leave it. Leave it
home. Leave it home.
So before you go, look through your wallet or your purse very carefully and remove anything that you won't need. It's a good idea to have more than one credit card just in case something happens, but just leave one in the safe at the hotel.
And make sure Most people, I think, who have done some traveling now know this, but you need to notify your bank that you will be traveling and tell them in what countries you will be, because otherwise they might think it is a stolen use and they will stop the card.
Yes. So the thing that thieves are after are obviously your wallet, because they're hoping that you're going to have cash in there.
Cash.
They can probably, if it's a U.S. credit card and it does not have a chip, then they can make a few purchases because they can just sign for it, right? And nobody ever checks signatures in Europe because we don't have check cards. We're not used to this.
Right.
We're used to everybody using a PIN.
But it is a fact, though, that we're lucky that here, the credit cards that we have here cannot be used if you don't have the PIN number.
No, if you don't have the PIN number, you can't use it anyway. But I thought,
American credit cards, they are so vulnerable.
Yes.
They are terrible. They really are.
So just make sure that you know how to contact your bank in case of emergency.
There's another kind of safety, too. For people traveling, specifically people over a certain age, almost everybody has some medicine. Make sure that you have enough and a little bit more than enough for the days you expect to be traveling.
Right.
And don't carry that. Carry just a day or two. If you have a little pill box, keep enough just for a day or two with you in case for some reason you have your bag stolen or lost. You don't want to lose your medicine because American prescriptions cannot be used in Europe.
Right. But you should also have a list of all your medications that you take. Either take a photocopy of your prescription or write down what you take and the names. Because if you run out, if you have a problem, any French pharmacist can look up the equivalent. And you might need to go see a doctor.
That's right.
But they can, they can help you there. Yeah, they'll figure it out.
Right.
So you need to know the names of the medications that you do take.
And just understand that you should come prepared to have enough so that you don't have to worry about that unless there's an emergency.
Right. And it's good to have that on you, the list of your meds anyway, because again, if you get hit by a bus,
or you one day don't feel well and you need to have an idea of what's going on. I mean, this can happen.
Yeah.
You need to be able to explain to somebody what medicines you're taking.
Right. So that's your homework, is make some photocopies and put everything in zipped pockets or bags.
And for
Zip it up.
Women, yes, obviously a bag that goes over your shoulder, crisscrossing over your shoulder, that has zippered pockets. So my thing is, and this is because I've had my wallet stolen twice in living in France, and this is not even as a tourist, just because of living here. I never keep everything in the same pocket.
Right.
So I separate things from one pocket to the other. I haven't had my bag stolen. I've had things taken out.
Right.
So now what I do is I keep things separated, and it's a little bit crazy because I figured out my own system. But at least I figure if somebody gets their fingers in before I realize
they don't get everything.
They don't get everything that way.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference somehow. You know?
Yeah. So let's think it through. What's the most expensive thing a pickpocket person could take from you?
Passport. It's very expensive.
Your phone.
Well, your phone. Okay. But your phone, if it's stolen, it's stolen. I mean,
yeah, but those phones cost $1,000 by now.
Well, but what I'm saying is it's not like you can make a photocopy of your phone. You know what I'm saying?
But you need to really be mindful.
You need to be
where
mindful
your
of
phone is.
Where is it? Right.
Don't put it in.
Don't put it exposed.
Right. Yeah. Don't. And call me paranoid, but I have this thing that I put around my neck. My phone hangs around my neck and I don't do this all the time, but I do it often. One, because I have a tendency to put things down where I don't remember where I put it. And two, because if it's around my neck, it's not going to go away. So women, you might consider if you feel like you're in a place where there's pickpockets, and that would be the Sacré-Cœur, in front of the Eiffel Tower,
Notre Dame. It could be. The truth is, though, unfortunately,
it could be anywhere. It could be anywhere. But these are places where we know.
Champs-Élysées is really bad.
Yes, we know that the pickpockets, la Cour du Louvre,
right,
We know pickpockets just congregate there because they know there's customers everywhere. You know? So those are places where when you go there, you need to be particularly on guard. And so, put your phone like in your bra or something.
I just have I make sure I buy one of these bags that has lots of compartments.
And a zip.
And a zip. And I keep it inside in a little zipped compartment.
But coming from America, and this happened to me many times when I was visiting family here. I would come to France as somebody who had lived in America for 10 years, 15 years, whatever the case was. And you're not on guard all the time.
No,
about
I'm not.
These things.
Honestly, at home here in Toulouse, I am not.
No, you're not at home in Toulouse because you know where you are, whatever. And we don't have a lot of tourism, so we don't have a lot of pickpockets.
We don't.
Here.
But I sometimes think about that because I realize I walk around sometimes with my phone in my hand, or I walk around. It's in a compartment in my bag, but I don't think about it very much.
Yeah.
In Paris, yes.
Right. But the thing is, when my sister saw how I was behaving, like at a grocery store, I would take a cart, put down purse on the cart, and then turn around and choose some yogurt or whatever. She was like, never, ever, ever do that. Like, you're asking for somebody to just pick it up and walk off. How would anybody know what just happened?
That's true.
You just have it attached to your body at all times. And this is important, especially for phones. They have to be in your hand like if it's in your front pocket or something, keep your hand on it.
Right.
You have to know where it is.
You have to know where it is.
It is really, I know it's a pain in the wazoo because you're not used to that kind of gymnastics when you're at home, but you have to be really prepared. And when you're jet lagged and when you're on a vacation, I know you're supposed to be sleeping in and all that, but you probably aren't. Honestly, most of us, especially when we go to Paris, we want to, it's like, go visit this, go visit that.
And then you get tired.
Do that, and then you get tired, and then your defenses are just lowered, and you have the jet lag on top of everything. And so you are vulnerable. You just have to think of yourself. And I know it's not comfortable to think of oneself as vulnerable, but you really are as a visitor. And anybody who visits any country is in that situation. I don't think it's any worse in France than anywhere else.
No, I don't think it is. Actually, it's not. I mean, there are other countries that are really worse, other cities that are worse than Paris. But I think the other thing is, if you don't come from a major metropolis, you don't always have the reflexes of living in a big city.
Right.
It's a real advantage, I think, to have those reflexes. I grew up in New York. Yeah. And I think that obviously I have had my bag stolen a couple of times. But once I knew that I just left my bag open and I turned around in a store and somebody put their hand in it.
Yeah.
But I think you have it's a developed sense of being careful. It doesn't mean it can't happen to you. But I think if you come from a more rural area or a kind of laid-back suburban area, you just don't realize how vulnerable you can be. And
in France, if something bad is going to happen, it's probably that you're going to get something stolen. Yeah, you get pickpocketed.
Right.
And as far as I'm concerned, the worst thing that most visitors carry with them is their phone. That's the most expensive thing they carry.
But the worst thing in terms of being a pain is the passport, which is why it's really essential to keep it in the room and not walk around with it, because that is crazy if you have to replace it. It's awful.
And it's so easily done. You get something out of a pocket and two other things fall out.
Yeah.
Especially if you're wearing loose clothing, which I happen to like. And right now it's super hot. It's summer is starting. It's very hot. Yeah, most of us are going to be wearing loose clothing because it's more comfortable. But guess what? It also makes it so that it's easier to lose something. If you pull something out of a pocket, something else might fall out and you might not notice it, or get pickpocketed. So, okay. Now, for photographers, this terrible yet wonderful thing happened to me on the inaugural tour. And it was, I'm pretty sure, entirely my fault. I carry around a camera, an expensive camera, an expensive lens. Okay. So I had been very careful the whole time. I have this backpack where I I had my camera. But because it was raining, my backpack isn't big enough to carry both the raincoat and the camera and the lens and everything else. And so I had gotten to the habit of having either my camera on my shoulder or my raincoat. And the whole week, it was like, oh, if I have the raincoat, then the camera must be in the bag. Yeah, well, one day I took the bus, the last day of the tour, I took the bus to go pick up a rental car. And at one point in the bus ride, I was sitting in the back of the bus. And at one point, the bus driver turns around and says, blah, 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 blah. I didn't know what he said, even though it was in French, and I'm French, but I didn't hear what he said because he was, okay. So I get up, I grab my bag, and I grab my coat, and I go to the front of the bus, and I say, what? And he tells me again, and I'm like, okay, no problem. And since several people had exited the bus, as a result of what the bus driver was just saying, because he had to be rerouted because of some manifestation or something. He wasn't taking the normal route. And so lots of people got off at that point, but he was still going to the same end point, which was Gare Saint-Lazare, which is where I was going to pick up the car. So great. I sit right behind the bus driver with my bag and my raincoat. I go to the rental thing, and I get my camera, and I start driving around Paris, and I'm feeling pretty good.
Your car, you get your car.
The car rental. Yeah, I get the car rental, and I'm driving around Paris to meet up the group, and I see something interesting, and I go, oh, gotta take a picture of that. And I was at a red light, and I reach for my camera. It's not there. And my blood froze. I was like, oh my God. I just hyperventilated. I just went crazy. And of course, I drive back to the place. In the meantime, I got on the phone. I got the car rental company. I had talked to somebody there, and they said, we haven't seen a camera, because I was sure I must have left it on the counter.
Yes, you sent me the message saying you left it on the counter.
That's what I thought I had done. And when I went back, thankfully, I didn't lose my cool. I didn't yell at anybody. I believed they were honest and that they didn't see my camera, I mean, what are you going to do? It's done. It's done. Like, I was crying inside, but I was like, okay, there's nothing they can do. There's nothing I can do. Let's just be, And I go to the police station. There's a police station inside of the Saint-Lazare train station. And I do my theft report. Yeah. And they make me produce all the what do you call those numbers? The serial numbers for both the camera and the thing. And thankfully, my husband was at home, and so he went and looked up the boxes, and he had all of this. I would have never thought to take a photocopy of my serial number for the camera. I mean, honestly, that was a bridge too far for me. Anyway, I had all this stuff. I filed the thing. The cop says, you really need to call les objets trouvés, lost and found, for both RATP, because I had told him I had to come on the bus. He said both RATP and Gare Saint-Lazare, because you never know. Okay, so this was Saturday night, and when I tried to call, nobody was answering until Monday was closed.
And she was very upset.
I was extremely upset. I was that crazy woman who walks around la Gare Saint-Lazare crying because I could not believe what had just happened. I had been so careful the whole time. Anyway, so then I have to fly back, right? I fly home to Toulouse, and I'm like, anyway, it was terrible. I felt terrible. And then on Monday morning, as instructed by the cop, I called the lost and found RATP. And the woman says, we have your camera. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, huh? What? And she starts giving me the reference number for the object, and we get cut off. Obviously, of course we got cut off. So I call back, and I was like, I was going crazy. I get this. Then my daughter happened to be going to Paris the next day, and so she picked it up and brought it back. But let me tell you what I have done in the meantime, because I never want this to happen to me again. So the problem when you carry a heavy camera, and most of you don't carry around a big camera, But if you do, you have to have it hands-free. It has to be that you never have to put it down anywhere. If you think, I'll just put it back in the bag, no, you won't. Not every time. No, you won't. You just won't. Because I know people, sometimes you keep it on your shoulder, and after a long day, it's heavy, and you put it down somewhere. So there are camera systems, straps that now I have a belt and a thing, and it looks like a holster. It looks like a thing you'd put a gun into.
It's Annie's got her gun.
It's Annie's got her gun.
It's her camera.
And let me tell you, and I have a thing called a clutch on the side. Anyway, I changed the way I handle my camera completely. I'm never putting that thing down. I since went taking photos in Toulouse, and I took all of that. It's so wonderful to have the camera around my hip, the weight of the camera on my hip instead of around my neck.
Yeah.
Because around your neck, it's heavy.
It's heavy.
After a long day, you put it down. So if you are coming to France with expensive camera equipment, for the love of all that is holy, have some sort of system where your hands are free and you just, I put a link to the exact product I bought. I can't remember the name right now. It wasn't that, compared to the price of the camera, it's like $100 or something,
But
it's
also,
nothing.
Think about it. It also means one of the things people should do is if they have material like that is expensive, to note down somewhere the serial numbers and make a photocopy of that as well, just in case.
Yeah, if you bring expensive equipment, you probably should do that because in the case of a stolen wallet, French people, what French people do is we have to go to the police and file a report, right? But for Americans, that's useless because a French police report is just going to be honestly, it's a stack of 30 pieces of papers.
Yeah.
And it's just French legalese. It's meaningless to Americans. And so what you need instead is to just be able to cancel your stuff. But if it's an expensive camera, in that case, and you want to use some sort of insurance that you have back home for your equipment, in that case, it's probably a very good thing to have. Or no, you have to have a police report, even if it's in French legalese, right? Because otherwise, everybody would claim that they lost, that their camera got stolen and they want a new one. So yeah, if you have expensive camera equipment or something, get it insured. And thankfully, mine was insured. I didn't get to test how good the insurance was, but yeah, if it's expensive, it should be insured.
But the fact is, you were really lucky.
I was so lucky. So there's this expression in French. I don't know if you know it. Do you know what the expression is for being super lucky?
No.
Avoir le cul brodé.
No, I don't know that.
Do you want to explain what it means?
Well, I'm not sure if I translate having an embroidered ass. I'm not sure how that makes you lucky, though.
Well, avoir le cul brodé is to be very, very lucky.
Really?
Yes. Well, I guess, you would have, I guess it means wearing expensive underwear.
Maybe
it comes from that. Embroidered underwear?
I don't know. I have to look this up, I think.
But anyway.
I'm not sure why having embroidery on your ass makes you lucky, but...
So anyway, that's my story. And I will never again have a camera around my neck or on my shoulder.
That you have to put down.
Or tell myself that I will put it back in the bag because I know I won't. Honestly, the chances of you getting pickpocketed are... not that high.
No.
But I think thousands of... Paris is full of visitors, and most of them, nothing ever happens.
And I think I think it's good to have all these precautions and yet not be scared to walk around, because the truth is, it is a kind of just a draw of the... It's kind of a lottery, somebody getting pickpocketed or not. You just do not know. And the fact is, as you say, most of the people who do this are so good and so professional that you don't even know it's happening when it's happening. So it's a little bit of karma and a little bit of just being in the right place or the wrong place at a given moment.
Yeah,
That's
it's
all.
luck, good
It's
luck,
just
bad luck. Yeah.
But you can help it along by doing these things.
Exactly, by doing all these things.
Right.
And I'll put a list. I know we've mentioned a lot of things. I'll put a succinct list of, pre-trip things to do that you should really just do those things. It'll take you 15 minutes. It won't take you that long to prepare for your trip. But you should really do it, because if you don't, yeah.
It's I'm
and we all feel violated when something like this happens.
It makes you feel very upset, and it really ruins the trip.
Yeah, it can ruin a trip for you, and it's unnecessarily so, because it's just stuff, right?
Right.
Nobody got hurt.
But the paperwork is hard to deal with. And all that,
And some things are really hard to replace.
Yeah.
Some item, like all the photos that I had taken. If I had really lost them, I would have been devastated. But the thing is, again, because I was hoping to not be, I was trying to be cautious, I didn't bring my laptop on this trip.
Well, you wouldn't have walked around with it anyway.
No, but then at night I would have copied my.
You would have emptied it.
So the other thing I should have done that I didn't do is just swap the memory card every night. Change memory cards. The problem is, if you do that and you take a lot of photos like I do, then the numbering is not necessarily in the right order afterwards. Yeah. And she's shaking her head like, why do you care?
What do I care? Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, I shouldn't care. I shouldn't care.
What I'm thinking is, how now, especially in high-end cars, there's voice recognition for unlocking a car.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. My sister has it. And there's also fingerprint recognition. So if you have the key in your purse or on your body, if you go next to the car and you touch, if you use your finger on the door, it actually opens.
Wow.
So
cool.
Somebody out there who's really inventive will create some kind of app that works like that for bags, so that if somebody who's a foreigner puts their fingers in your bag, some kind of siren goes off, That would be so great, There you are with your little bag walking around, and somebody puts their fingers in and it goes, wow, wow, wow. I want that. Somebody out there, do this, please.
Somebody do this and send us the prototype.
Send us a prototype.
Yeah. And these pickpockets people, and I'm going to stop after I've said this, but these people, they're like magicians. They can do all sorts of things right in front of you.
And you don't know it.
And you don't know it, because they have practiced this.
Yeah.
They are very well practiced, and they present it in a way that it works. Most of these scammers are not that good, but some of them are really very good.
Yeah.
They're the David Copperfield of pickpocketers, and they can get into, Rick Steves stuff or my stuff, or even though in my case it was my own fault.
Well, you have to think that you're lucky you had a very honest bus driver.
Yeah, it was a bus driver or something. Or
I think so.
And I thought because of my back button focusing for basketball, I thought, whoever got the camera tried to take a photo, and it was all blurry, and they didn't know how to focus it, so they were like, that's a piece of. So I.
Right.
No, nobody had even tried. The person didn't even try to take a photo.
See, that's why I think you were just lucky. I think it was somebody who found it.
Very lucky.
Yeah,
I was very, very lucky. And
a nice, honest person.
Yes. And you know what? My whole life, I have returned so many things. Not on this trip, but on my previous trip to Paris. I went to the women's bathroom, and somebody had left their ginormous new Samsung on the
really?
next. Where you put the little trash things in somebody had put their phone down on the trash thing and left it behind. And so I thought, okay, what do I do? I wasn't going to keep it because I don't do that.
Right.
But who do I turn it into to make sure that it doesn't get, I didn't want to turn it into whoever.
Right.
So I just went to the front desk and I talked to like 3 people at the same time. And I said, I found this phone because I figured 3 people that not one of them is going to pocket it, right? I mean, that would not work. So I just... I found this phone, here you go. And they thanked me and I left. It was fine. I didn't mind doing it. But I've done that so many times. I even remember my nephew once, he found a phone at the playground. He came back and he said, Tati, j'ai trouvé ce téléphone. I made him give it back. He cried. He was mad at me. But I made him give it back. I looked it up and I found the number for mommy. So I called mommy and I said, hey, mommy, I have this phone. Your kid left it behind. And mommy picked it up.
Yeah.
And I've done this my whole life. So it was only karma, I guess. But still, it was so lucky. All right, Elyse, let's stop talking about unpleasant things. But it's good to be prepared.
It's good to be prepared. And unfortunately, I know you were totally traumatized, but it ended well.
It ended very well. I was very lucky. Au revoir, everybody.
Bye.
Au revoir. My thanks to the new listener who signed up to support the show on Patreon this week. Joanne Mayer, thank you for adding your name to the growing list of patrons. And thank you to the 59 patrons who support the show month after month. I want you to know how much I appreciate your continued support. I am looking forward to 60 patrons, hopefully soon, because, I like nice round numbers. To support the show on Patreon, go to patreon.com/join us. Patreon, join us, no spaces or dashes or anything. And if you want to see all the ways you can support the show, go to joinusinfrance.com/support. Some of these will not even cost you any money. Thank you for reviewing the show on iTunes. MPK West from the United States. She or he says, a must for traveler to France. Wonderful, entertaining, and informative. I am glad you like it. Thank you for taking the time to write a review in iTunes. Anytime you review the show or share it with somebody else, you help it grow and continue, and that is really, really precious. I also want to thank all the people who get in touch with me to offer to record an episode with me about their experience in France. I could not do the show without all of you sharing your knowledge, and your first-hand knowledge is really, really important. If you want to participate in the show, connect with me, either on the Join Us in France closed group on Facebook, or you could email Annie@joinusinfrance.com, or leave me a voicemail at 801-806-1015, and that's a US number. When I recorded the episodes on wine education with Dave Walsh, that was yesterday actually, after I stopped the recording, he wanted to give some feedback on the inaugural tour, but he didn't tell me that. He just started talking, and that's because his wife was on the tour a month ago, and it took me a couple of seconds to realize that's what he wanted to share, and so I pressed record again because that's important stuff, but I missed the first sentence or two, but what he says will make sense anyway. The wine education episodes will be released over the summer, and they are very informative and very good. But on today's episode, you'll just hear Dave give some tour feedback, and he had some very nice things to say. Thank you, Dave.
So when I heard that you were thinking of doing a tour,
yeah.
This is just a prime opportunity. I really think that I should, that's why I contacted you before you got your Addicted to France website up and running, right? Is this going to happen, right? And then while I was waiting for you to get the website set up, I started looking at other tours, right? And said, maybe I'll just send on a regular tour and stuff like this. But then I thought, no, this is just not going to be as personal, right? And Sue needs, Sue's got a bucket list of things she wants to do. And there was a couple of episodes that I listened to, you guys. One was the Orangerie Museum episode.
Yeah.
When Elyse talked about that. And then one of the episodes that I absolutely had no interest in, but I listened to it on a bike ride, was the one about the architect that collaborated or didn't, that was the famous architect during the Second World War. Do you know which one episode I'm mentioning?
That was the one on Le Corbusier.
Yeah, and you and Elyse were kind of going back and forth that of the history, and you were arguing, and I was laughing while I was on this bike ride, right? and I came home and I didn't tell. I said to these two just cracked me up. I mean, here I'm learning something about something I never would have thought about. They're they're arguing like crazy. And that pretty much convinced me. I said, you know what? I think if Annie and Elyse do this tour and it doesn't get the people and it really doesn't work out, they might never offer another tour. So
Yeah.
that's when I decided to pull the trigger. And I said, okay, no, I'm going to send Sue. And honestly, to say that Sue had the time of her life, I mean, she literally is still grinning now. And
That's great.
over a month later, right?
Yeah. Oh, and she was such a delight to have with us because she had a lot of spunk and a lot of interest and everything. She was just excited about everything. It's fantastic. It was fantastic.
But she also talked about these different folks that were on the tour with her, like the two ladies from Michigan. She said, I want to be like that when I'm there. I mean, these two got on the flights and the planes, this, and they went there and they did this all on their own, and they were going there afterwards. They were going up to Brussels or wherever they were going.
And just go. And I was a little worried when I met them because I thought, can they keep up? And yes, they could.
Yeah.
They were amazing.
So Sue had an absolute ball. I mean, I think you know that. But honestly, I just kind of knew that your tour with Elyse, it would not have been if she had been one of the 25 people on some Kentucky tour, walking around with an umbrella or the sign,
Yeah, it's not the same.
It was not going to provide the same, right? And then lastly, I mean, you're absolutely right. The weird thing about doing the podcast is that people feel like they know you, even though you don't really know them.
Right.
And I had a sense of your character and Elise's character before I even booked the trip, right? And
That's
I said to Sue the other day, Annie reminds me of somebody who you'd want to have over for a cup of coffee or a glass of wine. And she actually said, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what her character's like.
Yep. Yeah, because it's like they wouldn't be like you wouldn't have been attracted to us if we didn't have compatible personalities. Let's put it that way, And so normally when you go on a tour, you have no idea. Even I mean, I know lots of people love Rick Steves, but he doesn't do any of his tours himself.
No.
Right.
No.
And so he hires people, and hopefully he hires good people. I suspect that's the case, but you show up and here's a new person, and maybe there's chemistry and maybe there isn't. And of course, you're not going to get married to them, but you're going to spend a week with them. You might as well spend a week with somebody you're going to enjoy.
Well, Sue just really enjoyed all the people in the group. I don't know, like 10 folks, and she just said like, there wasn't one person on that tour that you would be like, oh, I don't feel like sitting next to them at dinner time.
Yeah, no, everybody was great. Everybody was great.
I mean, I think it absolutely hit on all the things that I wanted and that what she wanted. The only thing that she actually said, now that she's actually been on the tour, she said, I think they could actually charge more for this tour. And she actually said that. She said, what you guys packed in and what you did, you actually charge a little bit more. And then the last thing that Sue actually touched on when she actually gave you feedback was you provided enough flexibility with regards to accommodation and food that I think it's very smart of you, and at least not getting into the we're going to book the hotel game.
Oh yeah, no.
That will not work.
No.
Everyone wants something different, single bed, double bed, blah blah blah. I mean, I think that was smart.
And there are people who are very happy with very simple, they could sleep on a bench and they couldn't care less. And there are people who want something more plush, and we can't just decide for people. Most of these tours, actually, they make most of their money on the hotels because they book the hotels far in advance, and then they get a substantial discount for prepaying, 6 months to a year in advance. But we don't want to do that because there has to be a lot of flexibility. Being in the same area makes sense, but not more than that, because otherwise, yeah, it just becomes one of these mass tourism thing that we don't want to do.
I think it was very smart of what you did.
Yeah.
This meeting point, this is when we're going to meet. You book your accommodation. You arrive whenever you want. And we start at this time and we end at this time and everything else in between. And this is what's covered. And then you're not feeling like you basically mothering all these people around.
No, because they're adults. I mean, they're adults. They're in a foreign country, but they're still adults and they know how to make their own choices. So
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, Annie, it's been wonderful chatting to you. And
thank you so much.
Yes, you're absolutely welcome. We'll meet sometime and we will drink a bottle of Tavel Rosé.
Excellent. I'll put it in my suitcase and bring it over next time I go to California.
Okay.
All righty. Thank you very much, Dave.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. The Join Us in France Travel podcast is written and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2017 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.